is Erin, and today I'll be talking about whether or not there is space on Einstein's ladder for deliberative democracy processes. First, I will discuss public participation and how this is categorized by Einstein. Then, I will discuss deliberative democracy processes. Finally, I will prove why these processes extend beyond Einstein's ladder. Public participation in environmental management is critically important. This is reflected in the Sustainable Development Goals, which recognise the need for fuller and more inclusive democratic participation. Specifically, Goal 16 calls for responsive, inclusive, and participatory and representative decision-making at all levels. Public participation serves many purposes. For many policymakers and environmental advocates, public participation is essential. Indeed, a basic component of democracy is allowing impacted communities and other stakeholders to take part in decision-making. This also increases the legitimacy of the decision-making process. There are many processes that promote public participation in environmental management. Increasingly, the public is engaged in policy dialogue, stakeholder advisory committees, citizen juries, facilitated mediations, and various other processes which emphasize face-to-face deliberation, problem-solving, and consensus building. There are also many different levels of public participation. Specifically, participation can range from simply informing stakeholders to delegating them with complete power. Further, participation can occur at all stages of the decision-making process. As such, participation strengthens the link between information gathering and decision-making. There are many different models used to categorize forms of public participation. The most frequently used model is that of Einstein's ladder of citizen participation. As we will now discuss in depth, the ladder illustrates levels of public participation, ranging from low to high. As the diagram shows, Einstein's ladder consists of 8 rungs. The first 2 rungs are levels of non-participation, the next 3 rungs are levels of tokenism, and the final 3 rungs are levels of public power and control. As is evident, each rung on the ladder corresponds to the extent of the public's power in the decision-making process. As Einstein explains, the bottom rungs on the ladder are manipulation and therapy. These 2 rungs illustrate levels of non-participation, which Einstein argues have been contrived to substitute genuine participation. Specifically, it is argued that these forms of participation enable those in power to educate participants in order to obtain their support. The next 2 rungs on the ladder are informing and consultation. These rungs illustrate levels of tokenistic participation. As Einstein argues, often these forms of participation serve as a one-way flow of information. That is, the public is not given the opportunity to provide feedback or the power to ensure the decisions are enacted, which restricts their overall participation. The next rung on the ladder is placation, which Einstein argues is just a higher level of tokenistic participation. In short, while the public is allowed to advise on matters, ultimately those in power retain the right to make the final decision. The top rungs on the ladder are partnership, delegated power, and citizen control. At these levels, the public are enabled to negotiate with those in power and hold authority to make decisions. As Einstein explains, at these final levels, the public obtains the overall power in decision-making processes. It is important to consider that there are some limitations to the ladder. Einstein herself admits that the 8-rung ladder is a simplification, and that there are in fact significant gradations of public participation. Corner argues that there would need to be as many as 150 rungs to cover the range of actual public participation levels. Recent approaches to environmental management tend to be more complex than those outlined by Einstein. That is, these approaches involve a wider range of ways for the public to participate in the decision-making process. As such, it is argued that the ladder no longer reflects the realities and complexities of role sharing between governments, communities, and other parties. A recent approach to public participation involves deliberative democracy processes in which deliberation is central to decision making. As Hendricks explains, deliberation is a social communicative process in which equal and relatively impartial participants consider arguments on issues in view of the collective good. Deliberative democracy processes do not involve those who are aligned to interest groups or engaged in lobbying or policy making. Instead, members of the public who are representative of the views of the wider public receive expert input and discuss issues in order to determine a solution. It is argued that these processes produced informed, rational decisions and fair outcomes for the public. Increasingly, government and non-government organisations are allowing members of the public to undertake an active role in policy development through deliberative democracy processes. These processes provide governments and organisations with the ability to distribute the right information, elicit public opinion, facilitate reform, and avoid the cost of non-participation. In this way, when members of the public engage in deliberative democracy processes, they are given the opportunity to legitimately participate in decision-making. Evidently, these processes move beyond the lower rungs of Einstein's ladder, as they are neither manipulative nor tokenistic, and align with the higher rungs of partnership, power, and control. As aforementioned, there are limitations to Einstein's ladder. In particular, the ladder does not reflect the complexities of current decision-making processes, which involve a wide range of stakeholders. However, deliberative democracy processes are able to overcome these limitations while simultaneously fostering cooperation, networks, and obligations. In all, deliberative democracy processes extend beyond the public participation approaches outlined by Einstein. Specifically, these processes provide a wider range of ways in which the public can engage in decision-making than those that Einstein suggests. As this presentation has shown, deliberative democracy processes move beyond the limitations of Einstein's ladder and provide further opportunities for public participation. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope that you have been encouraged to participate.